All right, Trinity.
Yes.
Are you able at the bottom of your screen, do you have a more option
Mm,
next to reactions?
no, I do not.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a host instead.
Cool. Ooh.
Now I am not, you're gonna have to make me host again, but I wanna see if you can, well, you just make me a co-host, that's fine. But down in the bottom, you should see a more link.
Whoops. I see the live on YouTube.
Click on that, and then you're gonna have to choose Poets and Pints. I wanna see if it is the email address to use.
Let's see.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Poets and Pints. I'm sorry for the delay. Just trying to get it live for all the people who weren't going to join via Zoom. Is it loading for you?
It is in the process of loading for me. I will make you a host again. 1 second.
Just make me a co-host. Otherwise, it might mess it up.
Got it. Okay. Stand by. This is a lot of power.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Are you a co-host now?
Yep.
Perfect.
Hello to the 30 people who just joined. We're just waiting for the YouTube feed to start, and then we'll start the show. I appreciate you all being here at Poets and Pints, August 2020.
You got a big crowd tonight, too.
Yeah.
Tony, my connection has timed out a couple times now trying to live stream it.
Can you do research and see if Google's having some kind of problem?
Yeah.
All right. We'll just have to, okay, I'm going to end the waiting room. Let everyone in. All right. We might just have to go. Trinity, try it one more time. And if it doesn't work, then just go live on Facebook for me, Leah. And then let everybody know on the various medias that were on Facebook, not YouTube. Okay. All right, everybody. Let me cut the music here. I know. This is high-tech stuff, this show. I'll tell you what. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Poets and Pints, August 2020. It is our 64th show of Poets and Pints. We started back in 2015 at Harriet Brewing, and then we were at Free State or Fair State. What is it? Yeah, Fair State. And then we moved to Sisyphus Brewery. Obviously, with COVID-19, we're not at Sisyphus Brewery. We are online, but we don't forget our hosts because they are great hosts. So when you get a chance, if you could go to sisyphusbrewing.com and log on, you can go into their curbside area and you can either order some beer, which is great, or you can order a gift card, which is also helpful, and just give it to somebody. So if you don't drink, why don't you order yourself a gift card on there? Just help out a venue. We want to make sure that venue's there once they find a cure for this madness, and that we can go back to having wonderful live shows that we were doing prior to this all going on. We have a great show tonight. We have 6 features, which is more than we usually have on a night that's not like a greatest hits show. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't want to take too much time at the top, although I do want to acknowledge the fact that we lost a great this month. Mr. Mike Finley, the king of St. Paul poetry, as they called him. He was a mentor to me. I'm sure he was mentor and friend to a lot of people. For me, the last thing I remember, the last thing he told me, and it was after I told him how important he was to me as a poet. I wanted to make sure I get that in. I knew he was really sick. I knew he was starting to fade. So I'd sent him a big long message just telling him what he means to me. And what he said to me was, he thanked me, and then he said, your remarks this past year have meant a lot to me. I admire your passion in getting the word out. Hope someone does that before you get old and crusty, which sounds a lot like Mike. So what I want to do first, I mean, everybody's muted, so it's kind of a moment of silence anyway, but if you have noise, if you could just give Mike a quick moment of silence for our lost poet, our lost king of the St. Paul poetry. Thank you. And now I am going to read a Mike Finley poem to celebrate him. I pulled this poem at random out of his latest, the book that I found that was called Instructions for Falling. It came out in 2018, and this poem is called My Method. I had no idea how other boys did it, but just going by dances and hallway behaviors, they seem to get by acting tough, in control, disclosing little, putting out a mask of confidence. That was in fact quite fragile. C.J. Banjoff was the most masculine guy in the school. He strutted and sneered, a poor guy with ambition and apparent talent. But when a girl said no to him, he pulled out a gun at a drive-in movie and blew his brains out. The first of us to go. Because boys are vulnerable, and so much is at stake. Their reputation, their future, their ability to survive against a world of unfeeling competition. I had no reason to feel confident either, and I was younger than them because I skipped a grade, and my development came slow. I never quite bristled, and this was a source of considerable concern, so I chose another way. I didn't try to wow girls with my muscles or by blowing smoke and acting mean. I treated them with unexpected seriousness. Connecting with my, well, let's just say it, my fathomless blue eyes. Prettier than most of theirs. It was all there, deep down in the pools of the eyes, compassion, understanding, and fun that threatened to be profound. I looked at them the way they wished their fathers did, just once, like no one had looked at them before. 49, I knew who they were, or I found out who they were, and I promised, and the promise I made was that this moment on, they would feel known. They would have someone to open their hearts to. I could absorb all their pain and heal them with my comprehending gaze. I had a system for getting them to want me, and I did fairly well, statistically, in the front seat, in the back seat, in the tall grass along the highway. Forget the others, I told them with my eyes. You will never know love like this. I alone will love you the way you need. They gave themselves to me sweetly and leaned across to one another, and we met. I forgot to mention, I also had a car, plus my family owned a saloon. That was Mike Finley, everybody. So, like I said, tonight we have an amazing lineup of features, and we're going to go right into them. We're not going to waste a lot of time here. Our first feature tonight is Megan Gosney. Megan Rose Gosney was born and raised in Southern California, where outdoor living and a creative vibe inspired and encouraged her overactive imagination. Through venturing to the Midwest, her heart resides in, though venturing to the Midwest, her heart resides in the Pacific Northwest, where she can be near the mountains, coasts, and rivers. Megan received her Bachelor of Arts in English from Central Washington University and her master's in teaching secondary education at Washington State University. She's currently teaching English language arts at a local high school. The written word is a preferred method of communication, which she commits her obsessions and thought trains to paper. Her poems have appeared in Sweet Tree Review, Word Piece, Right Hand Pointing, and After the Pause. You can find her on her website, and I forgot to put it on the paper, but Megan can tell you her website. Trinity, will you unmute Megan for me? And Facebook at megan.rose.gosney. Everybody, please welcome Megan Gosney.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Tony. This is a fantastic opportunity for me. This is my first official. Oh, am I still muted?
No, I was going to say you're welcome. That's it.
I'm still like flashing back to when we were trying to get me unmuted in the first place. So I just, fantastic opportunity. I'm really grateful to be able to share with you guys tonight, and then to be able to listen to all of the other features, and then the open mic as well. I've joined a few times now. I've never been in person to Poets and Pints, but that's my goal. And then, once we're able to open back up safely, and but I've joined a few times now and really enjoyed it. So this is a fantastic show. So this is my first time reading, so I apologize if I'm like nervous or talking really fast. I'm not super comfortable, but that's okay. I'm, like I said, excited. So I have really just 5 poems that I'm going to share, just because I know that I'll talk a little bit about them before. But the first one I'm going to start with is my first poem that got published, because as a poet, that's kind of a big step forward, going from just writing poems on my own and for myself, and then finally getting to share something beyond just sharing with my friends and family. So I'm going to share this one. It got published in Sweet Tree Review, which I was very grateful for, and it's called A Brief Dissertation on Absent Horses and Men. I like the natural twists and turns of Monday morning bedhead. It is somehow more alluring than lush shampoo commercial head, and each knotted kink feels real between teeth and comb. Sometimes I want to tie roses in the knots so that it seems like flowers have bloomed from my head. Yes, I know that I am broken and cannot be fixed. Remember Humpty? But I deserve rose-colored hair. I feel all too much and sometimes not at all, but I did feel the break. You took the easiest route. You just stopped, and I didn't. The momentum was too much, and I felt it. I cracked as I hit the wall, porcelain doll skins smashing and shattering, and when I woke, I was a shell with bedhead and a vacant face on the windowsill. There's that one. Thank you, guys. So obviously that poem was about a relationship that didn't end the way I thought it would. I intended to end it at least on a happy note, and it didn't go the way I planned. So, on that note, I'm going to read another poem about the same relationship, because why not? Just, stick with the theme. So this one is called Casper Wasn't Friendly, He Was a Dick. So here it is. You are a ghost. You have ghosted but have not died. You have rendered the Ouija board useless and deleted my phone number. Now I have to close my eyes to look at you, staring at a seamless image. The disappearing act you committed without a question, but I have had to visit the way that your mouth curved like a question mark when you said, "Trust me." Ghosting, what some think is reserved for casual dates or one-night stands, is meant to injure, and that is what it did. I should have known, considering what else you'd ghosted. Considering the lactose, the nylon string guitar, and our framed prom photos, your tie a hot pink mismatch next to the flushed pink dress, once placed on the shrine in the corner of your room. Ghosting activates pain pathways in the brain, deprives an individual of social cues to regulate behavior, and causes emotional dysregulation. I can reduce the pain of social rejection with Tylenol. I can reduce the aftermath of ghosting with Tylenol. I can reduce with Tylenol. I can disappear with Tylenol. I have let you haunt me, but I need to give up the ghost. I close my eyes, and you disappear. Thank you guys. That one's a little dramatic, but it's still kind of fun. Everyone gets thrown off by the title, so thank you guys. I'm seeing all the comments too. I appreciate it. All right, so on that note, I write a lot. So no, obviously not all my poems are about relationships. I write a lot about death, which I only threw one poem in here about that because that's kind of depressing and I didn't want to be too sad tonight. So I was really grateful to have this one actually recently published in After the Pause. It's called Disposition Authorization Affidavit. And it's kind of in 4 sections, so. But they made it into something beautiful, he explains, holding the owl figurine in his hand. It is made from the ashes of Mount St. Helens. But all I see is ash, and all I hear is why, and it seems so wrong for an owl to scream why. To answer the question is to assume one of 3 reasons. 1, God allows it. 2, there is no God. 3, there is no answer, hence my silence. White lilies rise from the ground, children of the dead, and I wonder, might I also gather their shadows, their length, and cast them into shape, a figurine? When I die, I want to be cremated and blended with the dirt so that I take up as little space as possible. To whomever may dispose, do not shape me. There's my depressing poem of the performance. Thank you guys. So I just really have 2 more that I wanted to share. This first one, obviously, as Tony announced, I moved from Washington State, well, the Pacific Northwest, just last summer. So I've only really had a year to experience Minnesota. And I've really fallen in love with it in a lot of ways. There's some parts of like thrown me off. The humidity was, that was a rough transition. But I mean, it's absolutely beautiful here and the people here are fantastic. There's just so many good things about Minnesota, but it was definitely a hard transition from having lived in the Pacific Northwest area for most of my life. So I kind of, having had that transition, I was able to kind of process that with a lot of poetry because a lot of my poetry is connected to like the land, that I'm living in, the environment that I'm in. So I was able to process the transition with writing this poem. And it really just kind of talks about, the idea that, home can be a place. It also can, be outside of a place. And it takes a lot of the like cliches of talking about home and place and it kind of puts it into a poem. So we'll just see how it goes. All right. The cliche of space and wanting. I need space are strange, even cliche words to say to a place, but I voice them to the sagebrush and the record treeless mountains and the dry air. I left for air that was measured and fluid and realized that it was space that appreciated all things that we once held. I once held the desert dirt and the brittle salvaging plants in my hands that now swell with fluid. I once loved too. I used to tell my brother you cannot depend on a place to be home, but I take it back now. I could drown here if not for space and wanting. So yeah, thank you guys. That one obviously, isn't a diss on Minnesota in any way. Please don't take it that way. People are going, I see you. But no, really it was just me processing, the want to get away from what I had known my whole life and then realizing that, even though I had wanted to leave, I did miss it very much, so. All right, so this last one is dedicated to my cat because I decided that for my first, official reading, virtual or not, I was gonna have to read a poem that dealt with my cat. It's really short though, so nothing special. But I love my cat, so. All All right, this one's titled, I Think This Is What I Do to People. Once I cracked the door, the slit too small, too slight for a paw, and told my cat that she could leave, if she wanted, knowing fully that it was inability that stayed her love, not choice. I do that to my cat a lot. I'm kind of mean. I love her, so she has to stay with me. All right, that's it for me, Tony. I really appreciate it.
Little applause here.
No, you
Here, everyone
you
now.
were from 9:30 to 10. And like in there.
Thank you, guys.
With that.
All right.
job.
Thank you.
Good job, Megan.
I'm back. That doesn't wander out.
All righty.
Oh, it is recording.
Okay. Everyone again. All right. All right. That was really great. Thank you, Megan. Moving on to our next feature, and just to let everybody know a couple things. One, we are having problems getting connected to YouTube Live and also Facebook Live. Neither one of them are working right now. We're troubleshooting in the background, so if you have friends who that's the way they were going to watch, I apologize. We're doing everything we can, but keep up with that. I wanted to let everybody know who I am, just because I forgot to mention. My name's Tony Plocido. I am also a local poet. I got 3 books out, and if you're interested in any of my stuff, you can find me at mentalvalley.com. Feel free to go there and look at stuff. I appreciate it. Now, one last thing I did forget to mention to the features who were on the call. When you're on your last poem, and Megan, you did this, so it was great. But when you're on your last poem, tell us that you're on your last poem so we can remember to unmute everybody so you can get some applause. Okay, moving on. Next up, somebody that I've been writing poems with and seeing live and going to her workshops and stuff. So I'm pretty familiar with Leah Fleming. Leah Fleming is a 28-year-old working professional who lives in Minneapolis with her Chihuahua named Pepper, who I've also met. She has been writing for as long as she can remember and is graduating this spring with her BFA in creative and professional writing from Bemidji State University. She's a new member of the Twin Cities writing community and is excited to share her work with you. You can find her on Facebook at leah.fleming.33. Everybody, please welcome Leah Fleming.
Hi, everybody. I see some familiar faces and some that I don't. Thank you so much for coming to our virtual reading. I really appreciate it. I'm also just want to take a minute to say how grateful I am to be among so many other great poetic acts, especially Dessa. Words cannot describe my excitement in seeing her later. I am a little nervous for said reasons, and so I'll try to slow down and I'll try to speak as clearly as I can. I do have a couple poems. I don't have a ton. I have about 6 poems to share with you today. And the first one is called Navigating. Every night, the voice of her man clinks and swirls like ice cubes in a glass, a time bomb, held together by strings called love and I say things I don't mean. A weight, tension, connecting with her shoulders by a neck. No bruises or broken bones, just unbalanced compasses, helping to seek promises through dense waves. So the next round of poems I have, they're 5 short poems entitled the Mr. Bones poems. I do want to say also I missed the memo that we're not doing depressed poems at this set, so I'm very sorry ahead of time.
There was no memo. Do all the
Okay,
poems you
all right.
want.
I'm like, whoops. So without further ado, here are the Mr. Bones poems. We are nothing but magic skeletons, cushioned by muscle and sinew, with electric pulses charging us with action. Mr. Bones comes to me with a clank of his hips, dark holes as demanding as his outstretched palm. I clink my hand in his, the sound like a wooden chime. His empty smile widens into silent song as his arms encircle me. We are nothing but magic skeletons. And this is the second one. If Mr. Bones could speak, his voice would not be a clanking whisper or a muttering gravel, but smooth like a 1940s crooner as he whispers my fortune. Humming slow heartaches as we dance across the floor, his hip bone pressed against my flesh. His metacarpus cages around the weight of my thigh like a clamp. Nothing hides from Mr. Bones' dark gaze. This is number 3. Mr. Bones comes at night, my body immobile as my eyes follow his smile. His empty cavern of a chest looms over me as he reaches his long fingers across for my arm, the cold embrace of his hand. It is a Herculean effort to release my breath just before his bared teeth touch my mouth. Number 4. Mr. Bones stares at me from across a darkened room. He holds golden thread in his hands and moves his fingers across the shimmering strand like rosary prayers. His dark sockets do not move from my face as his fingers continue their dance, the click of their tips resonating like the second hand of a clock. This is the number 5. Mr. Bones makes another appearance as the snow melts away to mud. The grit cakes his calves to his kneecaps, but in his hand, he grabs a small bouquet of lilacs. His temples are encased in the small circlet of crocuses, and he bears his usual smile. He holds out the delicate purple flowers as the gentle scent fills my lungs, the click of his bones echoing like ice cracking across a thawing lake. We are not ready to dance again. I can almost hear him whisper. Sorry, my AC unit keeps roaring on, so I just wanted to quick turn that off. So this next poem doesn't have a title, this one, so I'm just gonna go right into it. My body is still a body. I have no home but it. Even when I am cruel, sticking razor blades through it, or starving it, or overindulging on good things, my body recovers, putting out the serotonin, processing the poison, surviving. My body is still a body, even when I am at war with it.
Unbelievable.
Do I have
Short
time
and
to do
sweet,
one more?
Leah.
It was my fault. Sorry. Wait, you do have time.
I don't?
You do.
Oh, okay, cool. So this was the one I was going to end on, and it's called The Eve of a Full Moon. She holds up her fingers, middle and thumb touching, as she describes my conclusions as tidy resolutions, each being packed up in a tiny box of closure. For as long as I can remember, the pressure of gravity always pushing on my rib cage, shortening my breath, thinking of the slow honey drip of your voice and the shape of your lips. But with this exit, all I feel is lightness, a weightlessness of oxygen filling my lungs. Tonight is a full winter moon, and I will let the same lightness through the windows as I light a candle to exhale us out.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
9 Inch Nails. These are 9 Inch Nails.
Done, Leah.
Very much.
Nice work.
All right. Let me mute everyone again. All right. I might be getting to the bottom of what the issue is with the YouTube, but I'll try to figure it out during the next person because no need to hold up the show. So that was Leah Fleming. Thank you so much, Leah. That was amazing. I appreciate you. Next, we're moving on to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now, Francis, if I say your name wrong, I deeply apologize. Please correct me. And actually, Trinity, if you could unmute Francis, that would be amazing. Francis Kai-Hwa Wang?
Wang, yes.
Is a journalist, essayist, speaker, activist, and poet focused on issues of diversity, race, culture, and the arts. The child of immigrants, she was born in Los Angeles, raised in the Silicon Valley, and now divides her time between Michigan and the Big Island of Hawaii. Her writing has appeared on NBC News Asian America, PRI Global Nation, several anthologies, journals, and art exhibitions. She teaches at the University of Michigan, University of Hawaii Hilo, and Washtenaw Community College. She co-created a multimedia artwork for the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center Indian American Heritage Project online and traveling art exhibition. She has many awards and accolades as well. I did cut off your profile a little bit, sorry. But you can find her at our website at franciskaihwawang.com, at Francis Kai-Hwa Wang on Facebook, FK Wang on Twitter, and Francis Kai-Hwa Wang on Instagram. Everybody, please welcome Francis.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to come to Minneapolis, so to speak. And the cracked walnut folks are great. I think I first met you all 2 years ago. I spoke in the, what was it called? The Freedom Library, right in St. Paul, I believe, and met Mike Finley and had a great time. So thank you very much for inviting me back to Minneapolis again. So this first, in honor of the week that we're in, I want to, my first poem is called Election Day Blues. And I wrote this the year after the second time we elected President Obama. But I remember that election really clearly because I walked into I always vote absentee, I should just say. And I walked into a coffee shop and a friend of mine said something about the election. And I said, what? Is there an election coming up? And everyone turned and glared at me. And I had to like stand in this coffee shop and say, it's okay, I already voted, I'm just joking. So don't forget to vote, everybody. I don't care what your politics are, you just have to vote. So Election Day Blues. A year ago, Election Day, you were on the train, sending yourself across the miles to me. Just for one moment, you were real in my arms. Today, I loiter at the train station, soaking in the sun and hoping to catch a glimpse of your shadow emerging from a train, any train, as if sheer will could conjure you into form. A new suitor was caught in a freak bank robbery yesterday, and I am unconcerned. Instead, I think of you. He writes to me of distance. I write to you of time. I wish you would make time to come see me. I want to touch your cheek and run my fingers along the edges of your ear. I want to feel the weight of you pressed up against me. I want to sit in a cafe and listen to your stories past midnight, your hand on my knee. Explain to me again why you are not here. I do not understand how time keeps moving forward without you. Thanks. All right. This is great. This one is called Crying on Airplanes, and I actually wrote it the last time I went on the airplane on my way to Minneapolis 2 years ago. And it was the week that ProPublica released those audio tapes of those children who had been separated from their parents at the border, crying and heart-wrenching. So I wrote this on the plane, like at the transfer point and anyways. Crying on airplanes. Whenever I hear children on crying on airplanes, I always laugh. Been there, done that. Ain't got to worry about that no more. Not that my kids ever cried on airplanes. I laugh because I don't have to carry 2 extra changes of clothing in case they throw up on me, twice. I don't have to walk laps up and down the aisle with restless toddlers. I don't have to carry extra sweaters, blankets, clothes, snacks, books, games, toys, videos, headphones, batteries, socks. I don't have to try to sleep with little feet in my ears and elbows in my boob. I don't have to carefully pack and double check all the children's suitcases and carry-on so that someone doesn't try to sneak on her triathlon medal in order to test TSA's metal detectors. I'm done. But this summer, when I hear little voices crying on airplanes, all I can think about are the cries of those 2,300 little kids ripped from their parents' arms and shipped on cold metal airplanes across the country to, literally, who knows where. Cold air blowing on top their heads as they fasten their seatbelts and return their tray tables to the upright position. When all their parents wanted was what every parent wants: asylum, safety, freedom. And here I am, worrying about my 18-year-old daughter sitting alone a few rows behind me. And I'm done. Thank you. Okay, here is, I try to, write when the events are going on. So with the COVID pandemic, I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a lot of anti-Asian violence across the country, including 1,900 reported acts of anti-Asian violence in like the first 8 weeks of the lockdown. And it's been going on around the country, around the world, and increasing. But so this is about and also I live in Michigan, so I don't know if you've heard about our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, also known as that woman from Michigan by the White House. But anyways, so this is about COVID, anti-Asian violence. And it's called Finding Home, Crafting Community Between the Vincent Chin Case and COVID-19. 1. First, I heard from the high schoolers at Chinese school that all their parents were stocking up on rice and bottled water. Then I heard about the fights breaking out in the California Costco's. Don't mess with Asian aunties. Weeks later, the rest of America went crazy for toilet paper. But I am the child of immigrants. So while y'all were #quarantine baking sourdough bread, I was sprouting bean sprouts, grinding soy milk, coagulating tofu from scratch, sewing masks. Old school. 2. Newspaper headlines. Asian students say coronavirus is spreading discrimination at Michigan State University. Lansing State Journal. Coronavirus graffiti at park leaves Asian American woman scared, frustrated. Royal Oak Tribune. Local groups respond to aggression against the Asian community. WZZM Grand Rapids. 3. When I first came for grad school, the only thing I knew about Michigan was that this was where Vincent Chin was killed. And I was afraid. 27 years old, Chinese American, a bachelor party, a baseball bat. It's because of you, little, that we are out of work, said the white auto worker. These aren't the kind of men you send to jail, said the judge. All these years I've lived in Michigan, I've held it at arm's length, felt like I did not belong, waited for the day I can finally return home. Then I learned about all the people who came together across differences of race and ethnicity, demanding justice for Vincent Chin, the people who still speak out to defend others, the people who would craft a new answer to the question Vincent Chin's mother asked all those years ago. What kind of law is this? What kind of justice? 4. More newspaper headlines. Chinese Americans in Michigan donate more than 200,000 masks, supplies. Detroit Free Press. Michigan leaders encourage reporting of anti-Asian American hate crimes amid COVID-19. WWMT West Michigan. Opinion, hate has no home in Michigan, especially in coronavirus crisis. Bridge Magazine. 5. As the hashtag surge, hashtag stop AAPI hate, hashtag wash the hate, hashtag I am not a virus, hashtag hate is a virus, hashtag stand against hatred, and Big Gretch starts trending, I feel for the first time in all these years, like I belong here. Like I am not alone here. Like this can be home here. even as the last snowstorm of the season sweeps in tomorrow, in May. But in choosing to call this place home, we have to make this home for all of us, all our communities. Hashtag Asians for Black Lives, hashtag Flint Water Crisis, hashtag Run with Ahmad. What will you do to craft new answers for community and solidarity? Thank you. Oh, I have time for just one more. So this is one of my favorites. So this is my last one. And this is an excerpt from a poem with a very long title, Poignant Truth Prepares You and Preparing for the Sriracha Apocalypse. My parents wake me in the middle of the night. Chilai, chilai, hurry. Only enough time to grab my favorite doll and I have been bundled, bleary-eyed into the car and we are driving through the 3 tunnels that mark the way, then burst into the light and cacophony that is old LA Chinatown at midnight. We always come in the back door, through the kitchen, past the Cantonese uncles with their giant woks and oil. Ta! Our eyes adjust to the darkness of the restaurant, then aunties, uncles, little friends, 宵夜 time. That means 藕啊, 小笼包, 猪耳, 红油抄手, 粥. But first, we order champagne cha, which I always thought was champagne tea, which makes sense. These days, teenage girls gather around my kitchen table and I ply them with mango mochi and champagne cha, pretending not to eavesdrop as they celebrate college admissions. I got into MIT! Gasp over who is sending who naked Snapchats. Ew! And cry over, my mom says I'm not allowed to date those steezy 3rd generation snapback wearing California Asian boys with the expensive shoes. Thank you so much.
Letting
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So great.
I appreciate you so much for being on the show. We are running really ahead of schedule. So I'm going to tap dance a little bit and I'm going to ask that, let's mute everybody here, first of all. And if you don't mind, I'm going to bring up a couple of people here. Where are you? I'm going to bring up Megan again. Megan, you're still here. Good. And Leah and Francis.
I have more poems if you want me to read.
Yeah, I might actually do that. But first, I just wanted to, just since I got time to kill, I just wanted to ask each of you. So I should have Francis, Megan, and Leah all unmuted, and I just wanted to ask what brought you to poetry. And do you remember the name of your first poem? And we'll just start with Megan since she started off the show.
Okay, well,
you don't have to remember their first poem. Do you remember the name
okay.
of your first?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't consider myself a poet for a while, even though I had been writing poetry. I was in my bachelor's in English, my program. I did a lot of creative writing classes. That's where I was mostly getting a lot of my, building my craft in. And I didn't consider myself good at poetry. And so, I mean, it really wasn't that long ago. But I took a poetry class. It was one of the mandatory classes I needed to take. I was mostly writing fiction. I really enjoyed creative nonfiction. So I was writing a lot of that, and then took the poetry class, had a fantastic professor, Professor Zeller. And she actually has a couple of collections too. If you look her up, she's fantastic. And she kind of just mentored me and was like, yeah, you have something there, but here's what we need to work on. And I don't know, she just kind of grabbed my hand and pulled me through and really helped me understand the foundation of poetry. And
when did you say that was?
Maya Zeller, Maya Jewel Zeller.
No, when did you say that was?
Oh, when? Geez, that was 2014, 2016. Anywhere in those 2 years.
You've only been doing poetry for 5-6 years then, huh?
Yeah. So, but that was
Dang,
when I
girl.
considered myself a poet. I was like, oh, I can write poetry. This is a thing.
Nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
but I don't remember I feel like maybe my first poem was in high school, just in an English class. I remember cutting out some newspaper and putting some words together that way, but I don't remember my first poem.
And maybe you don't have an answer to this question, and it's fine if you don't. But if you could put out your book tomorrow, what do you think you would call your book?
Oh, actually, I I do have a couple of titles. One of them was Preserving the Resemblance.
Oh,
Preserving the Resemblance was
I like it.
my options, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So on to Leah. Leah, what brought you to poetry, and what was the name of your first poem?
So I actually, this is going to sound a little strange because I said I was graduating soon, but I started my bachelor's a while ago, and due to changes in my life, and I had to take time away from my bachelor's. But when I first went into my BFA back in 2009, 2010, I originally planned to write fiction. That was what I really felt a pull to, and that was kind of my calling. However, I had a writing poetry class, which was one of my required courses for graduation. And I had it with a professor. His name is Professor Mark Christensen. I don't even know if he's still teaching or if he's actually retired at this point. I met him a couple years ago for brunch up in Bemidji when I was visiting, but I actually don't know if he's still teaching or not, but he has a couple poems out, a couple books of poetry out as well. But he was my intro to poetry teacher, and he really fostered a profound sense of, he really made me feel like my writing had value as poetry. And there's something to be said for someone to take interest and really to push like that. And I don't remember the title of my first poem. I remember it was a lot about how summer changes to fall, and it kind of was about the correlations of life going through transformations, which was pretty accurate to what I was going through at the time, going to college 4 hours away from my home and exploring these new creative avenues I hadn't before. And that's what I remember my first poem being about. I thought I had my poetry book around here somewhere that I keep all my poems in, so but I don't have it, unfortunately. And I've never really thought about a title. I actually don't really like titles, so it would take me a little while to come up with a title for an anthology, for sure.
Sure. Well, that's fair. I mean, Peter Gabriel is one of the most famous people in the world, and he actually technically didn't title an album until his fourth album, Security. Before that, technically his first three albums are just called Peter Gabriel, but people put titles on them like Melt and Windshield and stuff like that because you got to tell them apart somehow. So, yeah. And that's all of his titles are like one words too. You know, it's Security, So, Us, and Up are the names of his albums after that. So,
you know, maybe it would be something like that, like the word persevere really resonates with me. So possibly Persevere. That would possibly be my title.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's move on to Francis. Francis, what brought you to poetry, and what was the name of your first poem?
Okay, the first, well, I have to confess that what brought me to poetry was the money, obviously, like everyone else. But when I was a senior in high school, there was some poetry contest, and they're going to pay $25, right, for winning, which is incredible if you think about it now, because today you wouldn't even make that much. But anyways, so I knew nothing about poetry, and I jotted something out about kind of the tension, no, the ambivalence of going away to college and leaving my mom and being alone. And it's totally not true, right? Because I was so ready to go away to college. But I wrote this poem. I had short lines because I thought that's what poem needed. And remarkably, they accepted it and they published it in this book. So I know, and that was called Hear What I'm Not Saying. And all I remember is it had 2 columns. One is what I said on the surface, and one what I said inside the insecurity. And you know, that's where I started. And then I went on and I became, you know, a journalist and an essayist, and then one day, and then I wrote this other stuff, personal stuff on the side, but I didn't know what to call it. And so it wasn't short story. Oh, they were short. That was the thing. They were short, but they weren't short stories because they didn't have any plot. And then I discovered something called flash fiction. I said, oh, maybe that's what that is. And then I did a lot of research. I read, and that wasn't it, but getting closer. Then I discovered prose poetry, and I said, oh, maybe that's what it is. And I just creative nonfiction. I said, oh, maybe that's what it is. And so somewhere between creative nonfiction and prose poetry, that's where I think I sit. But it took me years. And then I had written all this stuff. I mean, I just wrote what I wrote, but I didn't know what to call it, and I couldn't publish it because it didn't make any sense to me. Because it wasn't poetry and it wasn't anything else. But then I met this beautiful boy. And he talked me into organizing a show for him. And then I got mad, of course, and it's like, well, I'm doing all this work. I'm gonna, if he's gonna sell all this artwork, I'm gonna sell something too. So I pulled together my first chapbook. You see, nice. Imaginary Affairs, apropos, and I pulled it together, and it's with the stuff that I'd written, you know, nice. For over years, and somehow it hung together as a chapbook, in a way that it didn't when it, you know, was long. And also I didn't know what to call it. But anyways, so yeah, Blame the Beautiful Boy. And,
nice.
Yeah.
So
and you can find these at blacklava.net if you're interested.
Blacklava.net.
Blacklava.net.
Trinity, will you throw that in the chat for everyone? And so apparently I'm the only one who started writing poetry because I was walking around talking to myself anyway. And my first poem was called There Once Was a Man from Peru, and it was a limerick. And my first book was called Sucker Punch Wisdom. So, all right, let's move on with the show. I appreciate everyone for giving me that little bit of background here. I'm going to mute everyone, and then Trinity, if you could unmute Roy, that would be great. Now, I've gotten to see Roy in the past, and I'm very honored that they are on the show this time. Roy G. Guzman is a Honduran author raised in Miami, Florida. They are currently pursuing a PhD in cultural studies and a comparative literature at the University of Minnesota. Roy is a 2019 National Endowment for the Arts Fellow. Their debut collection, Carachos, was published by Grey Wolf Press in May of this year, and I believe there are schools teaching your book, right?
Whose school? Your school?
No, I saw something on Facebook that there are places that you were thanking for teaching your book.
Yes. There's a couple. I think someone responded, and I can't remember who responded.
Oh, well, anybody is amazing. So yeah, congratulations on that. And just one last, the website is royguzman.com, Facebook, Author Guzman, at Author Guzman, Twitter at CATRACHXS, and on Instagram, RoyGBiv5403. Everybody, please welcome Roy Guzman.
Thank you so much, Tony, for that. And my goodness, y'all, to see so many people on here, people I love, friends, and also like people who've influenced me a lot. I want to first of all apologize to Tony for so many times trying to get me to read on here. And, you know, unfortunately with COVID and things before COVID, it's been very stressful. But I'm very happy to be reading with Francis, Megan, and Leah. That was amazing. With Glenn and of course, the beautiful Dessa. I can't wait to see what she has for us tonight. I'm going to read 3 poems from Catrachos. Catrachos is a nickname for Hondurans. And I've been told to, of course, put the link to the book because I forget to do that. And thank you so much, David, for, I think we should do like a Beastie Boys like music video with like the book and yeah. All right. These 3 poems hopefully give you a sense of what the book is trying to do. And if you're interested in this, maybe you're interested in the book. So, all right. The first one is titled Arthur's Spelling Trouble. And it's inspired, it's after the animated show, Arthur, right? The Aardvark. So yeah, Arthur's Spelling Trouble, and it's Trubble. That's how it's spelled. Jenna is asked to spell essential. She trips before Arthur is challenged with Aardvark. He freaks out. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Arthur rolls his arms, swings in his blue jeans and yellow cotton sweater, sings out each mellifluous letter as if memory held the body accountable for demonstrating the ritual of remembrance. Gets it right. With only a year of ESL, I win my school's spelling bee. I spell platypus correctly, though I can't conceive of a platypus. I know plate. I know pus. My mother works 3 jobs to pay for my tuition because the people we clean houses for claim it's better than getting beat up in public school. I come home with a bloody nose nearly every day. The school's denomination is Lutheran, so we memorize Luther's small catechism, me forever confessing sins in hushed purgatory. It's private, like the school I attended in Tegucigalpa. You can get a decent education otherwise. And my mother reminds me where to mark accents on Spanish words, like crossing off memories I'm losing from lack of access. Just imagine the clock, she says, and the altar behind me vibrates when I am assigned the word platypus, picturing it in my head as if I were cutting around it with a crude pair of scissors. I'm not expected to win. To everyone's knowledge, I don't speak sufficient English. Arthur advances to the finals, but he doesn't want to represent his class at the school-wide spellathon. Mr. Ratburn thinks I can do it. He shares with his family over a simple dinner. Oh, if only old brown children had similar mentors. I begin gorging on new words, hood nomenclatures. I learn their roots, but never my own. I spell platypus, and even the pastor's wife cannot trust her ears. Afterward, the certificate bears my name in sloppy ink over marker. Maybe she was starting to write down someone else's last name when I was declared champion, or maybe she wanted her son, who's in my grade, to make a comeback and win the title. He's blonde, and I have a crush on him because I can see all the veins through his pale body. He excels in every subject. That's what everyone expects of him. I receive the same grades, but that's not expected of me. literature is the subject that persistently keeps me off the honor roll. I keep looking up words from Romeo and Juliet in the dictionary, but my dictionary isn't smart enough. Inadvertently, I'm looking up contractions, abridgments. Contraction, 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 as in establishing a contract with anything that dwindles, as in new disease, as in unplanned childbirth of words. Platypus, from flat-footed. The schoolmate who called me fag behind my back enrolled in the Marines around the same time I signed up. We'd train as a unit. I'd look over my shoulder, paranoid that given the opportunity, he would out me. He was flat-footed. He was never deployed. Faggot. 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 The majority of us recruits were the first to land in Iraq and Afghanistan, primarily poor sons of refugees, to die abroad, as if dying on US soil wasn't already effortless. They're not looking for brown minds, but brown war machines, my stepfather says. The beauty of machines is that they can be disassembled and reassembled. DW says, I'm not a prisoner of my vocabulary, but I can spell anything that prays for my destruction. A palindrome is a word that has two chances to disappoint you. There came a point when I was so pedantic and territorial with words, I couldn't even finish full sentences. I'd spell words in my sleep, embalm my thoughts. I'd watch Arthur when I'm sick to my past lover's chagrin. Cartoons are too infantile, they say, like parents who dab hot sauce on their children's fingers to discourage them from thumb sucking. They can't see which episodes I've hidden my luggage in, kept my dog ear thesaurus, my musty diplomas, like diplomats to intercede for me when my accent is called out as if my tongue held lesions unconscious to me. What dictionary are you using? The brain says after he misspells fear. Fear as part of speech. Synonyms, transgressions that can only be found in mirrors. Can you use it in a sentence? I was applying eyeshadow when my cousin stumbled into the bedroom my mother and I slept in. I must have left an after image in the mirror smeared with a brown boy's thick eyelashes, a shade of blue to enrapture other brown boys. As I turn around to stare into her eyes, ankles shaking in my mother's pumps, hands behind me as if handcuffed. I slipped the cosmetic through the narrow gap of a drawer, half the heels trapped under the chiffonier. A broken TV screen. In the episode, Arthur, in his round brown glasses, polytonal specter, sings letters to a word that might define him. My parents aren't home yet. I vapor rub on my temples. I'm back at the Lord's table, mispronouncing the wild dream that finds me in a language that I might speak, from which I might drink. Thank you. I will read these two more poems. This one is called My Great-Grandmother's Egg Thief. Yes. My great-grandmother's egg thief was never officially charged, though she considered her son's wife prime suspect. Rita, my great-grandmother's name, never trusted her daughter-in-law, and maybe rightfully so. Mama Chela's hazel eyes and light skin, as myth goes, 2 reasons a man would let his Trojan horse loose. Though in this case, after the 3rd child died, she left my grandfather Jorge to raise 4 more children. She found another home with a soldier, a newfound pariah status. Which is why when I took a drama class at the University of Chicago and we were studying Ibsen's A Doll's House, the renowned British actor who co-taught the course was appalled when I said that Nora still had a future to look forward to even in the 19th century. Surely white feminism never met the Latinas in my family. And few things match the warmth of an egg right after it's been laid. During summer, eggshells babble on the ground, the evidence of a predator's mischief, a branch buttress nest disposal, or a bird content with gravity's assignment. A man was jailed 4 times for stealing 700 rare wild bird eggs. Ospreys, golden eagles, red kites, peregrine falcons, merlins, redwings, avocets. In his residence, maps, climbing equipment, camouflage clothes, minuscule holes drilled on the shells. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Not the contents, but the collectible casings. How do you return everything you've stolen from us? Control the thing you most love at the root of your addiction. Folks camped outside Rita's house to have their tarot cards read before she aged and forgot who she was, forgot how to bathe, reeked of piss, chicken manure, eau de cologne. To schedule a consultation, men rolled from under cars, stars in their own Cantinflas films, greasy hair, creme fraiche in the corners of their mouths. The women gossiped incredulously after flattening corn on clay ovens for their patrones, matriarching all the ways we would outlast the policies of the rich. The thefts of Rita's favorite hens, brown eggs, became the source of fantastical tales populated by ghostly headless horsemen who abducted children if they ran away from home, or women pregnant with black magic frogs, or that man with a limp deemed hideous from false accruement. During sessions, I'd climb the long vines of Rita's backyard tree, swing 8 feet from the ground with the visitor's children. One of us would plunge, rip a new skirt, a striped shirt passed down 3 generations. Our mothers would scare us by paying my great-grandmother handsomely for a remedy to exile our demons once and for all. Leave them alone, she'd yell at them. They're just kids. Years later, I think about Rita's backyard, the trees that once swiveled their branches near the ground. It's none of your business what I do with my life, I hear Rita say, daughter of an indigenous woman and a man who, like most men in my family, left his breath on everything we call mirror or past. A man who tried to rape Mama Chela, his daughter-in-law. Some say he did. Rita, who bought land with her own savings, a rare feat for a woman in those days, in a country where women can lose their heads if they dye their hair the color of a gang's affiliation. Rita, who lost most of her land to the government on which Tegucigalpa's airport was built. Which means that in the lines of my wide nose, my plump ears, my dense lips, I bear the burden of every arrival, every departure. My great grandmother, who resisted losing her memory but lost it anyway, as her son lost his, kicked in the bath, spat out the spoon, concocted spells so potent, indigenous secrets mixed with loss, which sojourn parallel. The strength of 1,000 acres, stolen acres in her. The rest of us are still trying to figure it out why she shakes our houses at night, when we all stood there in silence, watching her track the bandits' clues, not knowing that all of us were stealing her eggs, all of us hungering for love. And I don't know, Tony, if I have any more time for one more.
You do.
Okay, perfect. So this is going to be the last one. And this is a poem called Queerodactyl. There's about 13 poems titled Queerodactyl in the book. It's a sort of like a book within a book. Yeah, all you need to know is there are several Queerodactyl creatures. There's a mother, right? Like if you're thinking about the drag ballroom scene, there's a mother. And then there's an asteroid that's trying to, land, basically break their party. And he sometimes goes by names like Dude Steroid. Queerodactyl. You don't have to watch me whip my wings back and forth to count the number of fires I put out. Single-handedly, lady, don't play. Up and out, don't break your nails on that tricera thought. Out and up, work that bill, work that bill, work that bill. Dude Steroid wanted to barge in here, old Dude Steroid explaining, old PC blazing, but I was like, nope. You can be going around preaching that embers wash off more easily than glitter. Not if you're going to fry our camouflage nightgowns with your silicate dick complex, exploding on every beach we go sunbathing on like a bottle of Viagra roulette. They used to call me Shorty for my short appendages, but I ain't no chicken head. No, I ain't no duck head. Don't confuse my bobbing, my elongated lips for submission, for a trick daddy's mass extinction. Lift that tail, swing that pitchfork, swing that tail, tail drop. Mama Pterodactyl used to say that when you deal with murderous jaws larger than yours, you ought to multiply your fortunes near an active volcano. Sniff the fumes, swallow your enemy's offspring in one gulp, go for the long necks first. Bigotry will claim innocence even while it burns our sanctuaries. Raptor hole, Tyranno hole, you ain't fly like me hole. To hell with Dude Steroids doing Triassic for pay. The voyeur will always miss the freedom of a red sunset. Box dip, hairpin, mating squawk, schwam, cunty, 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 cunty. Don't let them know where you hide the rest of your fangs, sis. Or that you're into fossil-friendly excavation sites that can fit an entire rainbow. So what if I have pycnofibers on my back? Call me cub, call me bear. I ain't roaring like a dino Katy Perry. Bring it, I said, bring it. Now, sachet. Dude Roy, still hovering in the sky. Closet queen, angel dust. In this bowl of fire, hate cannot enter our ozone. And for as long as the earth remains a hungry bay, there will be no death drive. We won't perish. Our scaly spirits can survive in fields of magma. Don't they know? Silly hoes, hoes that can't even get into this party. Hoes. No one's ditching this bitch without leaving an impression. Phoenixes on the dance floor, thrusting in the face of loss. Yes, Grey Wolf published this. Thank you all.
Thank you, Roy. It was amazing.
What were you
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Nice, man.
when you saw your friend.
All right. We're gonna have Roy unmuted again.
Working on it.
And to everyone else, I hope you got your pints. I mean, it is Poets and Pints. I don't care what's in the glass, but you should have something to drink. Anyway, Roy, are you there?
Yes.
So, do you remember what got you into poetry?
Oh my God. The struggle, right? The hashtag, the struggle. You know, I love the answers that all these amazing poets gave before me. And I
Even
studied
mine?
under, I studied under Michael Heddick, an amazing poet out of Florida. And a lot of the poems that I started writing were just like odes to like bands. So I think the very first poem I wrote was an ode to the Smashing Pumpkins. And it was titled, "We Are the Machines of God." And it was like this ridiculous thing about like, you know, whether there's a will, whether there's like a soul, who controls us, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and of course, those concerns have never left me, right?
After which Smashing Pumpkin album did you do that?
This one was actually Machina,
Oh.
or Machina, Machina. But yeah, I've been in love with them ever since, I guess, Siamese Dream. So,
Which is the best one in my opinion.
yeah,
Also, so this is your first book, right?
it is. It is.
Okay, so we already know the title of your first book. Do you remember the name? What was the name of that first poem? Do you remember?
This Queerdactyl.
No. Of the first poem you ever wrote.
Oh yeah, that one. We Are the Machines of God.
We Are the Machines of God. Okay. All right. Well, that's excellent. I really appreciate you being on the show. I've been trying to get you on the show, as you mentioned, for a while. And it's not like he was avoiding me, and it wasn't like a mean situation. It was just things didn't work out. And finally they did, and I'm so glad. We were originally going to have Roy on next month, but hopefully next month, everybody cross your fingers, Button Poetry is doing their show, curating a show for us. So that's not official yet. I'm still working with the organizer over there at Button, but hopefully it will be virtual. We're not going live next month because we're not insane people. But if they want to do a virtual show, then it will be Button Poetry next month. So I'm really looking forward to that. The other thing I wanted to do before we bring up our next poet is I wanted to remind everybody, in case you didn't know, that Poets and Pints is part of Cracked Walnut. And Cracked Walnut is a local chapter of the League of Minnesota Poets. Well, the League of Minnesota Poets is a nonprofit organization, and we all work to create opportunities in poetry in the Twin Cities. Well, Cracked Walnut specifically in the Twin Cities. We have actually two chapters in the Twin Cities. One is the Mississippi Valley Writers Group, and they're more of a writing group. And then Cracked Walnut is more of a performance-based organization. At least it is right now. And so with that being said, we do rely on donations. So if you feel the need to donate to our organization, you can go to our website, which is simply crackedwalnut.com. All one word, Cracked Walnut. And there's a donate button right there on the homepage. Please give if you can. I know I asked you to give to Sisyphus. They need it more than we do, but we do need it. So whichever way you want to go, that would be great. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next poet. So if Trinity, if you would unmute Glenn, that would be great. And I'm going to read about Glenn for you here. Now, Glenn was recommended to me by a poet we had on a couple of months ago. If you were on the show, you remember Jermaine Thompson. He's the one who suggested that I reach out to Glenn, and so we did, and I'm so glad to have him on the show. Glenn North holds an MFA in creative writing and is the executive director of Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center. He's also the author of City of Song, a collection of poems inspired by Kansas City's rich jazz tradition, And Glenn, I don't know if you know this, but I used to live in Kansas City. That's how I had the connection in the first place.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah, I loved it there. I only moved back because I got transferred back. Otherwise, I'd probably still be there. And the triumphs and the tragedies of the Black experience. He is a Cave Canem Fellow, a Callaloo Creative Writing Fellow. His work has appeared in Caper Literary Journal, Platte Valley Review, Cave Canem Anthology 12, the African American Review, and the American Studies Journal, and the Langston Hughes Review. Glenn is currently filling his appointment as the Poet Laureate of the 18th and Vine Historic Jazz District. That's amazing. You can find Glenn at glennorthpoetry.com, on Instagram at glenn.north, and on Facebook at Glenn A. North, all one word. Everybody, please welcome Glenn North.
All right. Well, Tony, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Jermaine, who read a few months ago, told me how excited he was and what a great show you all have. And just the work that I've heard tonight has blown me away. So thank you, Megan and Leah and Francis and Roy. Like, what a performance. What a joy that was. And I'm certainly looking forward to Dessa. But I will go ahead and dive right in. As Tony mentioned in the introduction, a lot of the poems that I write deal with the Black experience. First poem I'd like to share was inspired by a painting. There's a painting by a Jewish painter named Joseph Hirsch, and he did it back in 1946. And the painting is of this Black woman who's holding this baby. The Black woman looks horribly distraught. The baby is crying, and you know that something horrible has happened. And when you walk up to the painting and see the title, that lets us know the story. And the title of the painting is Lynch Family. So we then know that this woman has lost her husband to a lynching. And for those of you who may not be familiar, you know, the practice of lynching was prolific in American history, primarily from around the time of Reconstruction after 1865 up until about 1950. There were over 5,000 lynchings that took place in America. They were oftentimes social events. People would gather, they would have picnics, they would cut off the appendages of the victims of the lynching and keep them as souvenirs. They would take pictures, create postcards, and trade them like baseball cards. And so looking at this history of racial terror, we get a context for what we see playing out today with what we saw with the murder of George Floyd and consequently, you know, the police violence and the disparities in the justice system. So the introduction is actually much longer than the poem, but it's based on this painting by Joseph Hirsch. And I was so grateful that this Jewish man was impacted enough by this act of lynching that he decided to use his medium to create a way to kind of push against it. So this is called Lynch Family Blues. Went out swinging last night, baby. Hope you didn't wait up for me. Said I was swinging all night, baby. Did you stay up late for me? I wasn't swinging in no joint, darling. I was out on the limb of a tree. Now I'm walking on air, baby. Feels almost like I'm free. My feet steady kicking the wind. Yeah, I'm close to being free. And for the first time in my life, darling, white folks is looking up to me. Hear me, son, your daddy loves you. Keep hanging on to hope. You the man of the house now. Gotta help your mama cope. Daddy won't be coming home no more. I reached the end of my rope. Lynch Family Blues. So one of the things that I've discovered is that poetry is a great way to connect with young people. So for many years, I worked with disenfranchised youth, adjudicated youth in detention centers, or who were, in the court system. And I remember one summer we had a program and I was connecting with this, or trying to connect, I should say, with a group of young men. And it just did not go at all the way that I wanted. No matter how hard I tried, it just didn't seem like I could reach them. And I wish I could say that there was a happy ending to the story, but it was one of those times where I just felt like I wish I had had more time, or I wish I could have done more. And so that haunted me, and I eventually wrote a poem about it, and it's called The Prodigal Poem. This poem is unwanted. This poem is illegitimate. This poem was an accident. I didn't mean to write it. Yes, I let my pen touch the pad, but I was just scribbling, just doodling, just playing around with it like so many other poets before me. See, I thought the paper was on the pill, so I didn't use any protection. No correction tape, no whiteout, no eraser. I wanted to have it aborted, but by the time I had saved up enough loot, it had already reached its third stanza. The paper won't consent to an ink test, so I'm not claiming it. However, I see it hanging out in the hood sometimes. This poem lets its word sag so you can see it's behind. This poem wasn't raised right. It can barely even rhyme. This poem hangs out with weed papers and it drinks too much wine. This poem will be dead before it reaches its 21st line. Crumpled up in some wastebasket next to a suicide letter, or tragically executed by a heartless paper shredder. At the very least, it will end up locked behind the bars of some legal pad, and it'll be too late then to blame it on dad, whoever that may be. No, this poem won't end happily. It's already lost touch with reality, heavily influenced by BET. It's caught up in some warped hip-hop fantasy. It denies the genre to which it belongs. This poem thinks that it's a rap song. P to the Izzo, E to the ism, that's the anthem. Get all your hands up. This poem will never be published, revised, or anthologized. This poem will never reside in a library shelf because this poem is illiterate. It can't even read itself. This poem could never be a real love poem. It's too busy trying to be a Mac Daddy poem, but countless careless encounters have made it a that's just my baby's daddy poem. And it has left fatherless verses in journals and notebooks all over town. With each passing line, it sinks further down. Now, Job, Psalms, Proverbs are not just these, but Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon yearned for this poem to follow them. These prophetic poems that foretold of the coming Messiah and the glory of the New Jerusalem reached out to this poem, prayed for this poem, loved this poem. But some poems just don't want to be saved. They just crash and burn at the bottom of the page. All right. So Kansas City, Tony said that he had lived here for a while, so Tony probably knows that Kansas City has this amazing jazz tradition. Kansas City, during the era of Prohibition in the 1920s, Prohibition was not heavily enforced here. There was a guy named Tom Pendergast who kind of ran the town. His family owned a bar and was in liquor distribution. And so with his connections with law enforcement and the mafia, he created Kansas City much like a precursor to Las Vegas, actually. And so Kansas City became a great place to open up jazz clubs. And by the time the 1930s rolled around, there were over 300 different jazz clubs in the greater Kansas City area, the concentration of them being in the 18th and Vine area, which is where I serve as the poet in residence. And so I look at the history of jazz poetry, and, you know, I love Langston Hughes, I love the beat poets. And so this poem that I'd like to share, I just totally bit from Allen Ginsberg. You know, his poem Howl was heavily influenced by jazz and totally just changed the landscape of American poetry. And I've always been impressed at the impact that this poem had, and I've always loved its cadence. So I just totally stole this from Allen Ginsberg, and this is called Howl, the remix. I saw the stupefied souls of my generation ravaged by the heinous heresy that a hyper-hedonistic, self-seeking I, me, my existence could bring them joy. Souls clothed in insatiable flesh, folding themselves into medicine cabinets, scurrying into translucent sepia-toned bottles, seduced by pharmaceutical solutions to substantiate a pseudo-reality. Opioid oafs who somehow believe themselves to be better than the meth heads and crack whores tweaking on 39th and Main. Souls racked with existential angst, so swathed in the sashes of self-absorption and neo-narcissism, desensitized to the ultra-violence of the dum-diddy-dum-dum day, that the bullet-ridden, blood-soaked infant ghosts of Sandy Hook barely give them pause. Souls in gentrified, exposed brick downtown lofts, northeast roach-infested tenements, overpriced midtown two-stories, angry Brookside cottages, make America great again, Lee Summit ranch styles, all stuck on their stupid couches of obesity, stymied in a Netflix stupor, a bizarre, banal, binge-watching bonanza of buffoonery. Souls no longer seeking truth and beauty in art or the muse in music, having turned their backs on jazz, settle for canned, computerized, cacophonic caricatures lacking composition, monotonous auto-tuned, sordid strip club symphonies, twerk tracks transcribed for titillation. I've seen souls in need of screens, any screen, to Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, tweet, TikTok, looking for swipe right love and likes from strangers, posting photos of their vacuously vain vacations and their mundane megalomaniacal meals while little girls in Flint, Michigan don't have clean drinking water. Souls of grown men obsessed with playing with balls, playing with their own balls, erotomaniacs purveying porn, pulverizing their penises, a potpourri of predatory predilections, so perverse, so pervasive that the touch from a real woman leaves them impotent. Souls of women, diminished into dysmorphic delusions, lifting, nipping, tucking, cutting, injecting, dieting, dying for a Photoshop fantasy frame, a Botox vision of beauty that can never be obtained. Souls with holes that can't be filled, bartering their bodies on Craigslist or Tinder, but no tenderness, no authentic intimacy, no caress, only the conjugal clanking of jankety genitals joined in an unregenerate gyration of jaundice and jism. As I stood on the corner of 18th and Vine, a Charlie Parker tune howling from the Blue Room, I counted myself among those souls, dodging the image of myself reflected in the windows of cars passing by, not wanting to see the man I said I'd never be, the man I have become, another in the legion of souls who in the vanity of mortality cobbled together gods from dream catchers and crystals, swastikas and pistols, synthetic gods who would worship us. And I watched Jesus wave goodbye from a Greyhound bus. Oh Lord, who will we pray to now?
All right. Damn. That was
Thank you, Glenn.
All right.
Fabulous.
Okay.
That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. So,
the lynching one was heartbreaking. Oh my God.
Wow, wow. So where are we at, Tony? One more, two more?
Can't hear you, Tony.
You can definitely do one more.
Okay.
I just needed to unmute everybody and unmute you again.
Okay.
Please give us another one.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and end with a poem that I wrote that's also celebrating Kansas City's jazz tradition. Say around the 1950s, 1960s, the 18th and Vine area began to fall into disrepair. A lot of people who lived in that community began to move out to seek new opportunities. And in the 90s, when I started becoming involved in the 18th and Vine district, there was this push to kind of bring back that vibrancy. The Jazz Museum, the Negro League Baseball Museum were opened, and everyone was really excited about just rejuvenating the energy that was once so legendary. And so I wrote a poem with that in mind, and it's called Revival. And hopefully at some point you guys will be able to make it to Kansas City and you'll be able to come and hang out on 18th and Vine. There is a place where parched lips kiss warped reeds and cramped finger strokes strings and keys, filling the air with melodies, and resurrected rhapsodies capture the cadence of ancient chants where shackles are removed and our ancestors dance in anticipation of liberty. And every note that's played is dedicated to their memory. There is a place where each heartache and every sharp pain can be soothed and smoothed by a medicinal refrain. The story of King David makes it plain. And it came to pass that when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. You see, this divinely inspired requiem came forth from a glorious past, and although it defies description, we choose to call it jazz. And ever since this magical music emerged from space and time, it has found a permanent residence on 9+9 and Vine. Someday soon, you'll travel there to escape from cell phones and emails and faxes, from being overworked and underpaid and paying too many taxes. This is the place where even struggle kicks off his shoes and relaxes, and the only war that will ever take place is the battle of the sexes. This is the place where jazz is served up as a sensual delight, and it smells like grandmother's chitlins, because she always cooks them just right. And it tastes like the peach cobbler she bakes that gets better with every bite. And it feels like love's very first kiss shared in the soft moonlight. And it looks like Susanna Jones when she wears that red dress. Lord, what a beautiful sight. And it sounds like the jazz disciples cool on a blue Monday night, or like Gabriel's trump at the rapture just before we take flight. So these ministers of music are awaiting your arrival, wanting to provide you with orchestral comfort as you witness the revival, because jazz, like matter, can't be destroyed. It only changes forms. And the historic intersection of 18th and Vine is where jazz will be reborn. And then we will cherish this noble noise and glow in the cool of its heat, as the caramel-coated cacophony provides a sonically hypnotic beat that can only ever be heard through the tapping soles of the feet. And as willing slaves to the rhythm, our freedom will be complete. Thank you guys so much.
Woo! All right. Everybody, give it up for Glenn.
Oh, holy
Good
hell.
job, Glenn.
Thank you,
Good
Glenn.
job.
Amazing.
Thanks, Glenn.
Amazing.
So we're gonna mute everybody again, and Glenn, and then unmute Glenn for me, please. Glenn, you mentioned the prohibition and the speakeasies that were open for a while. I unmuted. Okay, good. So Glenn, you mentioned the speakeasies and stuff in Kansas City that were out there, and one of my favorites actually isn't in the 18th and Vine area. It's down in the West Bottoms. Have you been to the Ship?
I have several times, yes.
Yeah, I love that place. That's every time I go back to Kansas City, I have to go to the
Yeah, yeah.
because that place is just so cool.
It absolutely is.
For those who haven't been there, you go in, when you get inside, you look like you're walking onto the deck of a super old cruise ship. It's really neat. And then, so same questions I asked everybody else. Do you remember what brought you to poetry?
I do. So I was 8 years old. It was my birthday, and I've had time to think about it since you've been asking everybody else. But my grandmother was an educator. I spent a lot of time with her when I was growing up because both of my parents worked. And she would always give me like these great toys for my birthday and Christmas. Like I was growing up when Hot Wheels and Light Bright and Rock'em Sock'em Robots and all those things were popular. And on my 8th birthday, she just gave me a copy of the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. And it goes on, and it gives you all of these different ideas about what it means to really be a man. And she challenged me to memorize it. So I was really upset at first because I wanted toys, right? I went on ahead and memorized that poem. And about 2 weeks later, I was writing my own poems, and I've been writing poetry ever since.
Yeah, memorization, it's a thing. I run a workshop trying to teach people how to perform poetry. And it's one of the things I always say is that everything I'm teaching you now will be 10 times better if you memorize your piece.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's not that I have everything memorized.
No, I don't either. And as I've gotten older, it's much more difficult.
You already have a book out, right?
Yeah. It's called The City of Song. I'll be honest, I'm waiting I was hoping to have more before this event. It has sold out, so I'm waiting for more copies from Spartan Press. So they should be available probably within the next week or so.
Ah, yes, Spartan Press, they made this one for me.
Oh, wonderful.
So
you know Jason Ryberg.
Yeah, Ryberg considers me a Kansas City poet, even though very technically
awesome. I'll have to tell him I met you. Awesome.
Yeah, I told him you're going to be on the show, but he doesn't like technology, so he's probably not here. So I thank you very much, Glenn. And now, we have probably the reason a lot of you joined our show tonight. And I appreciate you for coming. And I hope that you come to future shows, even when we don't have Dessa. But Trinity, if you could unmute Dessa, that would be amazing. And Dessa is a rapper, singer, and writer who has built a career by defying genre conventions and audience expectations. As a musician, she's recorded critically acclaimed studio albums, appeared on the Billboard Top 200 charts both as a solo artist and as a member of Doomtree hip hop collective. Co-composed for 100 Voice Choir, collaborated with the Grammy Award-winning Minnesota Orchestra, and contributed to the Hamilton mixtape on the invitation of Lin-Manuel Miranda. As a writer, Dessa's work has appeared in the New York Times, National Geographic Traveler, and the literary journals across the United States. She's published 2 collections of essays and poetry, and has served as a guest writer for the Welcome to the Night Vale podcast. In 2018, Dutton Books Penguin Random House published her first hardcover book, a nonfiction essay collection titled My Own Devices, True Stories from the Road on Music, Science, and Senseless Love. You can find her at dessawander.com and on Instagram at Dessa. Please, everybody, welcome Dessa.
Hi. Thank you for the very generous welcome and the totally unabridged bio. And thank you for all the other poets for your work. Roy, I wish very much that it was the case that whenever anyone had visible veins, they were very often the subject of, of amorous attention from the cute guys in class. That was not my experience. Okay, I'm gonna dive in. This poem is called The Body. Most of your body is water. Also, most of your body is oxygen. Most of your body lives in darkness because it is the part of your body that is inside your body. Some of the water that is your body will leak out through your skin at the gym. If you removed all of your DNA and piled it on the coffee table, it would weigh about half a pound. Your body is yours for as long as you're around, but it will last a little bit longer than you do. Your body comes with thumbs that don't seem particularly special until someone explains them to you. Your skeleton is a puppet wrapped in its own strings. Your life is a brief parole from non-existence. Your body is a spacesuit. You are not viable outside of it. Most of the cells in your body aren't human. They're microbes, technically not yours at all. Your body is the holster for your name. You will have to share your name with many other people. You will probably share your body with some people too. There are only 2 alternatives to death, but they won't be discovered for many, many lives. Oh, it's such a weird silent landing, right? It's like the plane lands and there's total silence. Don't love it. Okay, this is a new one that I'm working on. Inspired in part by a recent totally like black thumb when it came to houseplants. This is called Fresh Cut. My mom said to put aspirin in the water, trim 2 inches from the bottom of each stem, then bash the fresh cut with the flat of a knife. And for her, I'm sure they would have rallied. But these hydrangeas are love proof to me. Dying so fast, it's gotta be on purpose. Yelling themselves deaf in a register just above or below or to the left of human hearing. Under the sink in the bathroom, I have a baggie of just in case pills with a Post-it note sealed in size that said what each color does. Some of the pills are scored in the middle, like the head of a chalk screw. Some are smooth and oblong, like unmarked submarines. Size and strength are not related. The tiny green diamonds will mess anyone up. The bag should not be touched with wet fingers, but the hopeless cases passed out on my kitchen counter deserve something stronger than aspirin in the water for their trip and their trouble, for having been amputated from the world at the neck. the lone escaping clap. Awesome. I am not miserable. I'm not like a Coke bottle glasses person, you know, but I'm usually a I'm usually a glasses wearer. This poem is about the brand name contact lens called AccuView. Shout out to optical technology. Soft contact lenses are like helper jellyfish. Each one comes in a tiny plastic dish sealed with foil and floating in a private pool of sterile tears. They last for 2 weeks, and you are not supposed to sleep in them. The wetness of the saline and the wetness of my eye suck the contact into fit and pull the focus of the world. Objects that have melted into one another overnight separate like dancers parted by the gym lights. The hex tiles of the bathroom floor snap crisp. My reflected face, tired, reports the freckle senses. And my interior even is corrected. Capillaries distinct now from the red, round organ meat. Bones cratered with tiny pores, and each tumbling blood cell neatly dimpled. And outside my apartment window, the leaves on every tree secede from the collective green to stand alone with one vote only, and distant street signs crystallize to tell me where I am and what I may not do. 2 weeks spin by in 2020, and we are at my favorite part. On the evening of the final day, I like to whisk one lens out and fling it, sometimes while I'm walking, sometimes while talking on the phone. I'll just drop it out the window. Let the lines relax around me, and let the convex wonder flutter down, still soft and warm like robot flesh. And then I'll do the other. And in the morning, the fresh set is so smooth that every blink feels fancy. My right eye gets it first. I stage the small thing on my fingertip, like the petal of a flower that was not approved for manufacture, made of the gel in which the universe was prototyped before it was infused with substance and with color, before there was enough to see to make seeing worth the trouble. I lean in and absorb it like cocaine off a key and stand there, half corrected, one eye in each world. And now it's time to load the left, amniotic, barely blue, like a thin shaved slip of sky. It clings, then settles into place between the iris and the lid, between myself and me. That's my secret signal for when it's over. I'm just gonna start nose diving. And I've been working on a kind of a mini series called A Guide to All Creation for like an embarrassing long time for such a short series. I think it was it Tobias? No, it was Tobias Wolff, I think, said something like when he published his last book, he said, I have children whose job it is to think, oh shit, I fucked it up. I have children who thinks dad's job is to write a book called A Man in Full. Was that Tobias Wolff? No, it was Thomas Mann. Who the hell wrote that book? Has anybody got me on that? Any prose readers, or is this a strictly poetry room? Strictly poetry.
Prose
I respect that. Who is it?
I don't know. I mean, somebody might know it. It's not strictly poetry. Like,
it's
a poetry show, but people might know stuff.
A very famous writer who I won't name for his privacy, not because I can't remember. Okay, this is a.
Lauren's got you. It's Tom Wolfe.
It is okay. So it is not Thomas Mann, and it is not Tobias Wolff. It is Tom Wolfe. Thank you.
You had almost had it.
Oh gosh, it's like a palindrome as a word with two opportunities to disappoint. That was such a bad last line. Okay, this is a poem called How to Make the Past. In the beginning, every day will be the first day. The living things with minds will startle awake like filaments electrified. The mindless living things will bend towards the light, too simple even to properly be blind. The days will not pass singly, but in booming unison all at once. They must be field broken before they'll submit to any sequence. New time is not line-like, New time is like a loaf of playing cards before it has been sliced for dealing. During training, you will lose some days to exhaustion. Others will escape. This is the cost of doing business. But when they'll go heel towing, the days may be knotted end to end. Then the living things with minds will fraternize in copulation, trade, and homicide, opposed or allied in every permutation, stepsister, mistress, mercenary, tutor, rival, live and help. And the days will trail behind them, stepping neatly in each other's hoofprints, noses to the ground. Thanks. And another in that same series, How to Make the Dead. The first round must be done from scratch. It's only through example that the living will learn what they are meant to do. The substrate is immaterial. The dead can be shaped from anything, really, but the process is painstaking. They must be kept cool and moist and alkaline, must be read to in German, though stern French might substitute, or they will stand, open one eye, go pink and warm and ruined, and you will have to begin again, from next to nothing. Hold thine applause. And of the same series, this one is called How to Make the Fishes. Start with a solid block of flesh, chilled. Set aside half a cup of mercury, a quarter pound of slivered bone, extra virgin olive oil, and a ballpoint pen. Preheat the oven to 45 degrees. Bring mercury and pen to boil. Lie down on the linoleum, stirring occasionally. Add salt and ash to taste, and set aside, uncovered. Left on the counter for a lunar month, the fish will make themselves. They will talk incessantly at first, but should go dumb by the third day. They must be taught to breathe water, must unlearn multiplication and astronomy, must be prevented from singing, unionizing, but they cannot be kept from cursive. They'll swim it as if guided by a single stylus, and lifted from the tub, a lone fish will still flex and bend with all the others, and if you fold him in your hands by force, the rest will jackknife in the water until he is let to spring flat and fast again. For all our other feats of husbandry, no one can design the fish who will not swim out its complaints longhand at being made.
Woo.
Thanks. Do I have time to do one more, Tony? I don't want to keep you.
Encore.
Yeah, you could probably even do two, depending on.
I'm good. Okay, great. I forgot to press the start on my timer. Super amateur move, Dessa. Come on.
Super laid back show, Dessa. Don't worry about it.
Forgiven. Awesome. Okay. Also just a quick shout out to Eric Lorber of Rain Taxi for helping me edit these in time for the show as well, which is really sweet. And of course, thank you so much to Cracked Walnut for the invitation. This is from a short collection that I put out a couple years ago. One haiku called My New Purpose. Without me, how would my headache get around? And a longer one called Nostalgia. Nostalgia comes home late, the lovely, tired little drunk. Hair let loose and curling at the ends. In the darkness of the living room and in her stocking feet, she tiptoes to the couch with exaggerated sneaking, knees lifting almost to her chest and arms outstretched like airplane wings, to pass out limp and dreaming in her dress. She does not see me in the doorway, a shadow leaning heavy on the frame, the hollows of my eyes gone blue a dozen years ago. My vanity and my good looks had the decency to leave together. There is some mercy, after all, in our design. A soft amnesia for the frequently mistreated, an adrenal surge for the cornered and outnumbered, a flash of light for the very nearly dead. If I could sweep together all my scraps of time, the leap years in my arms, the hours lost in airplanes, flying east against the turning world, I'd stitch them front to end and weave a garland like a water lily crown, lay it wet and heavy on nostalgia's spinning head of sun-bleached hair. Her even sleeping sounds bounce lightly off the walls and floor, compounding ad infinitum in the echo chamber of our home. She is in different company, a member of the privileged caste, exempt from housework, boredom, and the sticky paper of intimate association. And still, I can't resist the wave, flushed pink and posed exactly as she fell. She is time-sick, drunk, and lovely. And I am just an incidental, the kindly aging organism that puts her down to bed. All right, I'm gonna push it and do one last one. This is one, I'd say draft number 1. Thanks, guys. Draft number 1 of what I'm working on today. This one is called Jump and Stay Up. Jump and stay up. Sitting in a wire chair, bolted to an arc of others like it, in a concrete, unnamed park. I am the hollow center in a spinning disc of pecking pigeons. They get bold once or twice an hour and tighten my perimeter, and I have to stomp a sneaker or say, hey, to reassert myself as apex predator, deserving of at least 3 feet on every side. I want to throw my water bottle cap, flex some power, make a show, but then I'll have to careful carry it all the way home, or thirstless drink the whole thing here. Contemplating this tactical escalation, I miss the signal. And everyone with wings goes flush, like the snap of a damp sheet. Their numbers seem to double in the air, where they do that liquid bird thing, like one life melted into many bodies, or one larger body subsuming all small lives. And I am too big, too slow and heavy to detect whatever threat has raised them. My bones stuffed full with sod and marrow, my vessels freighted with myself. The compromise that is my skull, large brain, small eyes, allows me to consider, parse, and reconsider anything that I can see. But the tiny socket portals let in hardly any light at all. And so the thinking is often about thinking. An idle game of electric catch, tossing a spare spark from side to side. Fight or flight, those teams are pre-assigned. And so I will have to wait until this hazard shows itself. Wait, here bolted into my sneakers, armed with a hay and a bottle cap.
We'll unmute everybody now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
right,
you,
there they are.
Dessa.
Yay. Yay.
Great job.
Hey, encore! Woo! Hey, Dessa!
Biology is your muse, yes.
Hey, we're going to mute everybody again, and I'm going to ask you the same questions.
Oh, how did...
Yeah, hold on. You were muted with everybody else. Give me 1 second to unmute you. Should be happening. Why won't this thing unmute? There we go.
Yeah?
There you are, Dessa. Okay.
Oh
so-
man, I got nothing on Glenn, man. I read that Kipling poem for the first time as an adult like last week and was like, yo, this is so good. My first poem was called like Sunset, and it was rhyming and 4 lines long, and I'm pretty sure I just did it to impress my teacher, Helen. So it was like 100% ego / societal convention based. Like I just wanted an A, which is the worst possible way to approach a self-expressive art form. But I think that was initially what got me into it. And
How old were you?
maybe like how old are you when you're in fourth? Like 8 or 9,
nine.
maybe. Yeah, 9. But I would say that I got into it seriously probably in my late teens. I had a class in college that was all about creative nonfiction, and that wasn't a term that I knew, let alone like a genre that I had read before. But the idea that you could do art made out of true stories wasn't anything that had occurred to me. Like it hadn't even crossed my mind. I thought like true stories were for the newspaper and for textbooks, and an art shit had to be fake. And so the idea that you could be a photographer instead of a painter with words was really exciting to me. And I think that was when I started to really take it seriously as a like vocation, maybe. Yeah.
Nice. That's really nice. So obviously you already have a lot of albums and a lot of books. So the question about what you would name your book probably doesn't apply. But how about what name of a book do you wish you had thought of?
Oh, maybe I'm pulling up an answer from the time I was 21 that I wouldn't have now. But when I first saw Dave Eggers' heartbreaking work of staggering genius, like when he wrote his own book review in the title, I was just like, this dude is just all balls. Like, this guy is so brave and clever, and that felt so subversive at the time. You know, like I know that he did a writing contest that he hosted on Amazon for like the best 5-star review. So he totally tilted the algorithm because everyone went online to try to write a 5-star review to catch his eye, and that seemed pretty badass to me, at least at the time.
That is amazing. I've never heard that story, and I like that story a lot. Dessa, you don't know what you've done for this show just by being here. I thank you so much for being here. We're going to go to break now, and if you want to stick around from the open mic, I'm sure people appreciate it. If you got to go, or if anybody needs to go, obviously you can go anytime. It's free country. But we hope you come back in 10 or 15 minutes when we're back, and we're going to go through the open mic list. It has been randomized, so don't worry about the order in which you signed up for, and we'll just get through as many as we can. Again, the rule on the open mic is 1 poem, 2 minutes or less, please, because we want to try to get through as many as we can. But again, thank you, Dessa, and all the features, and we're going to go to break now. Please come back in 10 to 15 minutes. If you cannot come back, thank you so much for being here tonight. Bye.
Johnny comes marching home again. Hooray, hooray. We'll give him a hearty welcome then. Hooray, hooray. All the men will cheer and the boys will shout. The gals dress up and they'll all turn out. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
Get ready for the Jubilee.
Hooray, hooray.
He'll get 3 cheers from you and me.
Hooray, hooray. Uncle Sam will prove he's still the champ. He'll close up shop and break up camp. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny comes marching home.
Remember the night you said, I love you. Remember you vowed by all the stars above you. Remember we found a lonely spot, and after I learned to care.
Everybody, welcome back. Now I have to scroll to my list here. And so Trinity, you have the list too, so you know who to unmute, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we're going to dive right into the open mic here. Again, I remind you, 1 poem, 2 minutes or less, please, so we can get through this list. It's kind of a long list. And we've also had some other people ask if they could be on the list. And I told them if we have time. Hey, Lauren, I see you. I didn't know you were on here. Another KC person on the line. That's great. All right, so our first person on the open mic list is Mustard Jones.
I don't see them in the lineup, so.
Are you another name, Mustard Jones? Put it in the chat. Maybe if you're under a different name on the participant list. You have 10 seconds to tell us in chat. Otherwise, we're going to move on. See, this doesn't happen at live shows. All right.
For ease of going forward, Charlie, I don't see you in the lineup either, so.
Charlie's here.
Charlie.
I'm here.
Oh,
Yep.
radical.
I'm here. Yep.
All right. So Charlie's next. And Charlie, give us a poem.
All right. The brand new one, hardly the ink dries, called Lover's Sigh, and it's dedicated to my darling spouse for our 52nd wedding anniversary yesterday. Grandpa knew a butcher whose steaks were worth pursuing. We lived some 800 miles away. A visit deserved a celebration, which meant a trip to the butcher, which meant a pile of porterhouse or T-bone or ribeye, and a steak fry on the grill he designed himself. A waist-high affair made from bent sheet metal an open-ended trough 6 feet long with shelves on each side, heavy screening across the top. It seemed huge to me, but the steaks were too. It all worked out. Steak fries were his opportunity to cook. Otherwise, he didn't go into the kitchen except to help wash dishes, which he did cheerfully, often, content beside his wife. The fry was an elaborate production, charcoal heaped in a tube and lit with newspaper and lighter fluid, a long wait for gray ash to coat the briquettes, careful dispersion of the pile over the trough, smoke and sizzling fat as the steaks fried, lined up straight over the trough from one end to the other. He presided over the table as the steaks were presented, grill marked and fragrant on fancy plates. Pleased with our gathering, pleased with his efforts, and every time, as first bites were lifted up, he said, tender as a lover's sigh. At 10 years old, that made no sense to me. Lover had no erotic grounding. It was meant for, I love baseball, or in my age, I love Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. And I misheard sigh as sighed. How would anyone ever know what that was like? At 15, it still didn't make any sense, although I had a better idea of lover, theoretical, not practical, I confess. I wasn't sure that lover extended to grandparents. I wondered how Gramps, kind, gentle, straight-laced grandpa, could have known such a taste. Maybe there was more to grandpa than I could see. At 18, I heard it the way he said it. His unintentional eroticism retreated to age-appropriate romanticism for grandparents. I'm telling you this, oh love of my life, because my 10-year-old self heard the actual truth. Your sigh is tender, of course, among other things, but it is your side that counts the most, and the place behind your ears, and the little hollow at your collarbone, and in our 50-plus years, there are not many places that are unexplored, but they are all worth another visit, another taste, another search for what is most tender, for what tastes best.
Oh, cool.
Snaps. Woo!
Yeah.
Nice, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, thank you.
Very nice.
Next on the list is Thad Kresneski. Did I say that right? Screen right here.
I don't see anyone in the
I
list.
do.
Yep, that's me.
Dad, you there?
I'm here.
There you are. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, you did. Very good. Very nice.
Nice. Please give us a poem.
All right. This was a poem I wrote. I've done multiple combat deployments, and unfortunately, when you do that, sometimes you have to deal with death, and there's kind of a disconnect, a dissonance between what you see and what Hollywood sees. So this is a poem I wrote called Death of a Friend on a Battlefield. There's no crescendo when you die, no rising soulful symphony keeping time with the frame by frame, slow motion images of your demise. There is no rhythm, no rhyme. And like this poem, it is short, brutish, inelegant, and devoid of meaning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being on the show. Could not unmute my thing fast enough. Sorry about that.
Nice.
All right. Next on the list, we have Francis James.
Hello. Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, let me think which one I'm gonna do. I don't think I've read this one yet, so I'll read this one.
Yes. Remember Taylor Trouter had one?
It's called Who Am I? Or Who I Am. Sorry. I know now God isn't a man.
Francis, sorry. Hold on, you got muted because somebody was not muted. Hold on 1 second. Okay, start over for me. I apologize, please.
No problem. All right, it's called Who I Am. I know now God isn't a man who can't love me. The same as how I know eating 2 bowls of ice cream is only a fantasy of the brain I can do without. I know I'm further from who I was and now closer to someone who smiles and believes it. I know going back, even a different way, still gets me to the same place. I no longer want to stay. I know now horses mean more to me than a childhood dream, and dancing freely is medicine I need. I know the importance of the earth on my hands, clean air in my lungs, to sing without thought, only feeling. I know now what I love, and that makes me free. I know loving myself is a choice I make daily, and life will leave you where you are if you refuse to stand up for yourself. I know to listen for peace, to not wait for faith. I know rest isn't lazy, life isn't easy, and I'm the only person who can fix my crazy. I know letting go is sometimes letting live, and other times it's leaving behind what doesn't fit. All that matters is I found myself. I know now who I am.
All right. There we go.
Nice job.
Appreciate you.
Nice.
All right, moving right along here.
People upstairs, so I assumed you were.
All right. All right, we're done. There we go. And next on the list, we have an old friend of mine. Oh, I got muted. Now I'm unmuted. I should be unmuted. Okay, good. Old friend of mine, Lauren Sharag. Please give us a poem.
I don't.
It's Lauren Roberts on here. Sorry.
Got it.
There we go. I got her.
All right. Thank you. This poem is called The Debriding, which, if you don't know, is a medical term for the removal of dead or damaged tissue. The grease fire flared from the skillet, snapped like a dragon. If you hadn't grabbed the burning handle as you did and thrown it in the sink, the whole kitchen might have gone up. Alarmed at the rising blisters, we packed the wound with ice and got you to the emergency room. For days after, your hand sat bandaged and stiff, resting beside your dinner plate, swaths of gauze forming a white mitten, only the fingertips visible. When it came time to remove the dead tissue, the doctor unwound the bandages, applied the shears. Just a few snips and off it slipped like a loose glove, the flesh beneath mottled and red as bacon. I am terrified by this rawness and delicacy, by how thin this armor that stands between you and a world that can so casually melt and raise and transform. How vulnerable those small bones, nearly exposed. I am haunted by a ghost hand the color of ectoplasm. I can't bear to look, but unaccountably I want to keep it, that shed glove. The way my mother kept the bag of hair I cut off when I was 3. The way she kept that little box of my baby teeth. Because this skin was a part of you, and you were cooking dinner for me. Thank you.
Nice work.
Love having Casey in the house.
Thank you.
Hey, right? I know you got muted, but you can unmute yourself, Lauren. You're back in KC, right?
Yep.
Nice. All right. That was worth it. Sorry I made you do that. All right, moving on. Our next person on the open mic list is Simon Mermstein or Mermstein. Are you on here?
I don't see anyone by that name in the thing, so if you could put it in the chat, that would be great. If you're on. Here by another name. Boy. Twice. All right.
All right, moving on. The next person we have, and I'll give Trinity a moment to find her. is- oh, wait. Everybody got unmuted. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
My point being that, like, if you follow
Shannon
Me.
Fletcher. Shannon Fletcher is our next person. She had to get a drink apparently, but she's back now in the dark, all mysterious.
I know. I'm on Hannah's porch.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Tony.
All
Great
right.
show, Tone. Really good.
All right.
Okay, hello. This is so Halloween, spooky. This piece I wrote last week. It's called Fluffberry Moon. It was a Sunday I stumbled upon the warm sugar tartness that is marshmallow fluff whipped around a berry. Laughing huffy from the vape, we hold our forks over the stove until the fluff browns. The result makes you reconsider your life. Sometimes bliss only costs $3.29 at Cub Foods. I roast another phenomenological bargain and think, what else am I missing out on? Tasting deeply, eyes closed. Oh no, I lost a paragraph.
Like it's just gone, or you can't get it to come up.
I'm on my phone. I was like, oh, this isn't where we start. I'm just gonna keep going. Actually,
Okay.
I'm gonna write, can I read another one? I lost a paragraph in this one.
We'll allow it.
Did it on my Insta. I put this on my Insta. Thank God for Insta.
This is why I should have it, so I can recover the notes for it.
Okay, picking up right where we left off. Mad came over that afternoon, a rapture in daisy-dotted coveralls, to sit in the yard and fool the neighborhood bees. Tomorrow is the corn moon, sweet and nurturing, we hope. We plan full moon magic over LaCroix and the dusty twinge of a nearing farewell. Mad is off to Paris come harvest moon, jilting her theater MFA for the most prestigious clown school in France. Usually the gleaming sun card, Mad now pulls the fool. She prances mid-step towards a well-dressed destiny, laughing deeply, eyes closed. Mad is not alone. This year has drawn many fools, has left us getting up again and again to see what's in the fridge that we checked 15 minutes ago. Aimless, hungry, we stare into our pantries. We rummage. Trev is setting off west. Joe is applying to schools. A new job for me, a new do for you. There has been a change of plans in the air for months. You can smell it on the August wind. Breathing deeply, eyes closed. In our nervous boredom, we pull at the loose threads of fate's apron. We reconsider life, setting our sights for the empty fridges of unknown, distant lands. With heads held high, we step off cliffs. We reach for the odd, forgotten jars in the dusty back corner of the shelf, of the self. Slapping what we have on hand together, we meet late at night in the whispering prairie to manifest sweetness under a full fluffberry moon, chancing, dancing, loving, living deeply, eyes closed. That's me. Thanks, Tony.
Done. Thank you so much.
That was great.
Good job.
I always like to hear from my friends at AIR, and Shannon is one of those people. I'm just currently working with 2 people. Moving on through the list now. Next. Okay. Next we have T.S. Baxter. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be back. This one's called Alone Behind the Baseball Backstop During Elementary School Recess. I caught grasshoppers in my cupped hands and held them. Felt them popping between my palms like plastic balls in a corn popper. Their prickling legs traced my skin, kneading and reading the creases like insect palmists, tracing my character, already ingrained, and elucidating it accurately as tobacco spit. Dropping them inside my milk carton, kept from lunch and cushioned with handfuls of grass ripped from the hill, with a sound like the knees of denim jeans tearing. I whispered them secret inevitabilities kept from everyone else. How I really did separate myself from my classmates, intentionally, honestly, and that I would get famous someday for being handsome. The grasshoppers, trapped in that terrarium with no alternative but attentiveness, anticipated my fate of holding companions close in my carelessly furnished and curdled world and confiding pretensions to keep them there.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
I like that. Great.
Now is a voice I have not. I just got muted. Okay, now I'm unmuted. No, am I muted or unmuted?
You're unmuted.
It says on my screen that I'm muted. Okay, there we go. It's a voice I haven't heard in a long time. It's Wendy Brown Baez. Wendy.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Great show tonight.
Thank you.
Glad to make it. It's easier for me when I'm not on the bus to stay up and hear everybody till
There
the
you
end.
go. I offered to give you a ride, by the way, for the future show.
In response to the Gallup poll questions, when the only possible choices were between hardly ever and almost always. Give praise to the light within, invincible, untarnished, whether or not we see it at this moment. Give praise to angels who bear us up in their arms, even if we feel abandoned. Give praise to song when our throats feel parched. Give praise to hands held around the circle at the moment we feel the most lonely. Give praise to beauty that uplifts our spirits. Give praise to love lingering down through generations. Give praise to the web interconnecting us. Give praise to what is beyond words and the miracle of words, to bind, to assure, to comfort, in spite of everything. I am joy. In spite of my private tears and my public infatuations, in spite of regret over missed chances and lingering when it was time to go, in spite of hurts from those who misunderstood my stumbling, in spite of flying when I should have been building, in spite of jumping at the chances I should have walked away from, in spite of the real life I chose instead of a proven formula, in spite of days on the beach and nights under the moon when all I yearned for was a place to call home, in spite of time wasted on figuring out who I am while I was still becoming, I am in joy.
Done. I love your work. Thank you so much. All right. Did we unmute everybody? Heard some love? I didn't see it, but.
Woo!
All right.
Thank you, Wendy.
Next on my list is a very close friend of mine, Jessie Marie. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Give us a call.
Thanks, Tony. Glad to be here. This is an amazing show.
Thank you.
Fan favorite for sure. My poem is also one that I wrote during COVID, just like 2 weeks ago. It's called Someday I'll Grow Flowers. Note, it's not about growing flowers. Someday I'll grow flowers. I'll have to read how to pick the right seeds for the right petals. I forget the difference between perennials and annuals each year. My mother did not garden. I grew up with a rose bush in the yard that I wasn't allowed to touch. We did not dig in the earth enough, tending to our wounds enough, letting rich soil and sun, water, rain heal us enough. I carried peonies at my wedding. Maybe I would plant those to remember that all things must come to an end. In time, the ache lessens, and you start to think differently about growth, pulling the weeds out, picking the rocks out of the dirt to make room for something different to bloom. When it comes time to plant, after I've studied and know, I'll bend over and sow my garden. I'll tend to my knees and back. I'll tend to my heart the most. I'll water and cut and prune. I'll grow fresh colors of white, pinks, and purples. Take them in my house, a delightful bouquet. I'll place them in a vase, and I'll breathe in their secrets and sweetness. There I find forgiveness.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Jesse.
All right. Now we move on to Rhonda Redman. Rhonda Redman.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Redmond. I wrote a book. You can find me at rhondaredmondwriting.com, and I give you cake.
What was the name of that book real fast? You kind of held it up real quick.
The book is called Said the Old Widow to the New, What to Expect When You're Unexpecting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Cake. We sleep our first winter in your twin bed, back to front. We switch sides in our sleep like gas station hot dogs. I've got you and you've got me, and we can't take an inch between us. We marry up to a queen, sleep 10 years with newborns to toddlers to boys and a serving of dogs on the side. Our books fall open, tuck under, go missing. I read until I sleep and don't mind the light because you turn it off when you come to bed. A king-size mattress is a square acre, headless and footless. The dogs are a river running down the middle. Their baked potato feet run bunny dreams, scratch my back and find me in my sleep. Our lamps finally match. You fall asleep on the couch most nights. You buy a TV for
Rhonda, you cut out with you buy a TV. Are you there still, or did you cut out completely?
accident.
Rhonda?
Yeah?
You cut out with you buy a TV. So can you pick it back up from you buy a TV? Thanks.
You buy a TV for the guest room, you say. It's just for some nights. Some nights I cry. Some nights I drink too much. Other nights I sleep on the outside edge to keep from touching you by accident. I am a slice of cake balanced on the lip of this plate. You are a pork chop plopped down in the middle.
So nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed that.
Nice.
All right.
You go, Rhonda.
Woo. Moving on. Friend of the show, friend of mine, friend to a lot is Derek Liebertz.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm trying this without my headset. Can you hear me?
Can.
Good. All right. Raking leaves. 1. a sea of sod, green as growing gets, is set into a stained glass tableau of fractured maple syrup shards, brown and orange and red, all veined with October yellow. My chore sprawls, my boring chore, truly choring, if I may turn a phrase into a dead leaf, turn it over and flip it onto the pile, beside the pile, next to another tree-forsaken pile. 2. Another day falls, drifts into dun and hits the grave before I can pin it into a butterfly pose, nearly alive in perpetual safe storage. I look up at the nuding canopy of experience. The has now outweighs the will, but my seasons are not complete, and squirrels still dance up my trunk, squirreling away fruit of the oak. 3. With a halting cough, I grip my blunt instrument of order, ignore eventuality, and draw tines across another patch of early frosting. I feel the burn in shoulder and blistered hands. In spring, I would have sought audience, boasted my wounds, and exited stage left. But November's wind is the anesthetic. Mutely, I drink in the discomfort. Too many have fallen to voice complaint. Too few maintain their hold for anything but the enjoyment of sensation. Ticklish, pricklish, painful, gleeful, all of it. The whole dictionary of possible, open wide, and still mostly unread. Thanks.
Nicely done.
Woo! Thank you, Derek. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, Derek.
All right.
Lovely.
List. Next on our list of people, Jill Hillebrand.
All right, can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. I'll just preface this real quickly. It'll explain what the poem today at 2:10, and Rhonda and Derek know this probably, but I actually finalized my divorce after over 3 years on Zoom, which was incredibly bizarre, but it was very amicable. If you can say that about a divorce, it's kind of like friendly fire, but anyway. So we had an amicable divorce on Zoom. So this is kind of, will make sense to that divorce, and that's why I decided last minute to present. So this is called 18 Months, and it's part of a one-woman show I'm working on. Idyllic, heavily edited version of life. Kids, husband, dog, protected in suburban snow globe, presented pretty. Cracks, cracked, cracking. Husband demands divorce, decides to move. Globe life shakes violently. Uproot kids, live with mom, 1 bedroom, 4 people. Quick, terse thrusts, food stamps, free lunches, venlafaxine, menopause, turbulence. Lung mass found, unhealthy mother, leukemia, lost in 3 days. Idyllic, heavily edited version of life. Kids, husband, dog, protected in suburban snow globe, presented pretty. Fractures, shatters. Wake up, 49th birthday. Remnants, remains, remain. 18 months. Step out of bed, sliced by shards of what was, won't be. Start again. Sometime. Not today, nor tomorrow. Resist, reject, refute. Idyllic, heavily edited versions of life.
That's very nice.
All right.
Woo!
Good job, Jill.
Thank you for sharing, Jill.
Yes, thank you so much. That was great. I'll keep this moving. We still got some time left, so we're going to go into some extra people here who got a hold of me. So next on the list is Brendan Brophy.
Yes, Brendan!
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. Cool. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you to Tony, obviously, for hosting. Thank you, everyone who performed tonight. I was one of the featured performers last month, and we had a hell of a show, and honestly, this one may have even topped that. So, tonight was fantastic. Thank you, everyone who was a part of it. I'm just going to jump right into this here. This poem is called Coward. I'm sorry. I wish I wasn't caught in the existence of days spent striving for normalcy. The subtle scraps of neutrality picked from between each tooth, its taste an apparition, increasingly devoid of tangible traction and lost to the muddling palpitation of soliloquy. My reliable eyewitness accounts of a memory that knew a memory that knew a memory that knew a guy who supposedly knew normal. Squandered search attempts bogged down by layers of matrimony between crestfallen ambience and masochistic redundancies, prying over scraped tongues that won't let me forget what I do know. I know the feeling of the squeak from my aging recliner rattling along my spine. I know the feeling of varying degrees of wear on the knockoff leather in each seat of my couch. I know the feeling of the clothes that I've worn for however many days in a row now, slightly clinging to my skin. I know the feeling of strangers' eyes not knowing what to do with me because they've never seen a grown man crying in a grocery store checkout line for no apparent reason. I know the feeling of realizing that I wasted over 7 hours of my life binge watching The Tiger King. I know the feeling of realizing that I can't specifically remember the last time any of the hours of my life weren't wasted. I know the feeling of coming up with new angles to overthink the fears that I thought up earlier today when I was overthinking on the fears that I thought up yesterday when I was already overthinking for the millionth fucking time with my goddamn OCD-riddled brain. I know the feeling of my cracked and weathered hands leaving behind a morgue of dead skin cells on everything they touch because I can't stop overwashing and sanitizing my hands. I wish I didn't know the feeling of fear-induced defiance not allowing me to leave my bed until I've used the illusion of productivity to trick my husk into doing absolutely nothing on all the other pieces of furniture in the house through a dejected game of musical chairs played against myself. I'm sorry that I know the feeling of being grateful that there aren't any firearms in my home, because I no longer trust the lingering intimacy occupying my gaze towards blades, pill bottles, and other ways out. I'm sorry that I know the feeling of spending a night seated in a room of complete darkness and hoping the sunrise doesn't come. I know what it means to truly feel silence. Every moment of endless ciphering, hand-carved from time by each pulse, pulling through vein like knotted rope until breath has coated every surface in reverberation, the bare and ruined choirs of atrophy and asphyxiation, reminding consciousness that echoes are nothing if not the graveyards of pulse and breath. I know what it means to feel the withering frame of my responsibilities, the diminishing passion for my talents, and the separation anxiety from my employment, and the asymmetric oscillation of my mental health, all in symbiotic existence, utterly reduce me to a gardener of dead skin cells. The basins of my floorboards, a tapestry that begs of I wish, a memoir that prays to I'm sorry, a magnum opus born to the erosion of stilling echoes that simply whisper, coward. Thank you.
Snap, 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 snaps. Yes.
Wow.
Much
Oh,
love.
shivers.
Yes.
Wow.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brendan.
Wow.
Hey.
All
Thank
right.
you, Brendan.
We're gonna try to get in. Next person is Sarah Riveros. You there? Sarah? There you are. Wait, you were unmuted and then you got muted again. You can unmute yourself though too.
How about that? There we go.
There you go. Give us a 2-minute poem.
Okay, Taco Tuesdays. This was published today in Porridge online.
Woo!
Taco Tuesdays for Don Miguel. On Tuesdays at La Palmita, the whole East Side shows up for tacos de a $1. Don Miguel, el de la grúa, leaves his tow truck parked out back to serve plates hot. Construction guys dressed in bright yellow vests piden 10 para llevar. Parents show up with chamacos in hats and socks, coats unzipped. The wait is an hour easy, but the tacos are $1, and the salsa verde is that good. Mom with magenta hair laughs loud, whispers in her daughter's braids as they wait together in line. It's long. Mama hugs her son. Can we get horchata? No, not today. It's Tuesday. 30 tacos de asada para llevar. The wait's worth it. We stay, meet our neighbors, sit still mirando Televisa. In the realism of working mama's urban survival kit, tacos are a cheap magic trick.
Yes! Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. Yay!
All right.
Amazing. Yay.
Now I'm going to attempt to read an early version of a new poem that I'm working on. I hope it goes well. And then we'll close out the show. It's called White Noise. It's 11:37, close to midnight. The TV is on for noise, and it's white noise, but it's not white noise. It doesn't fade into the background as we drift to sleep. Well, shit, maybe it is white noise. It'll keep making itself known, periodically waking you up to tell you that it's there in some suppressed, repressed, racist way. And racist people make me sick. I have made myself sick. I have raced people where the finish line had room for one. I've made comments that were sharpened on the stones that were thrown in the past at people who passed by me on a lunch break or a funeral march. I don't know. I'm not without guilt. I'm guilty of hanging around. I'm not looking for a jury to hang me. I don't want to be a picture on your wall, the picture of found morality. I'm not that far along. Really. I have headphones on, listening to black music so that I don't hear the buzz jamming out as I work on projects that are apropos of nothing, like myself. I'm still searching for parts to fix this machine, the one that I was handed, the one with hands and everything, deserving of barely any of it. What I deserve was probably already given to me. I used it and threw it away. I'm sure I missed the basket. It was balled up, and someone who wished they could have had a shred of that had the job of properly disposing of it. This planet is fucking stupid. I say that from a good place. It's fucking stupid. There are hundreds of miles of food growing in the ground, and there are people who fantasize about the last meal they ate because it was the last meal they ate, and it was days ago. People who cry at night because the daylight is where the scars are created and shown. Meanwhile, my white ass is ranting about how it sucks when your urologist is hot. Fuck. It's a whole thing that I have the privilege of thinking. I have many boxes checked for me every morning. Over there, wherever there is, someone is hurting because the few boxes they have are full of bullets in the form of talking points, having to say the same shit so that the great white earth doesn't forget that they need help. They're happy to help, but they need help. They need sunshine, shelter, and a lawn, just like me. They don't want to cross burning on that lawn, just like me, except I would think it was a prank or a mistake because my shadow doesn't know hate. It's black and abstract, like the way the world tries to categorize whole generations of people. When I'm part of generations of people who own people to make money that wasn't for the people, I can't really feel justice. I can't love the status quo, especially when the status quo has never been fair. So I stand white and ranting because privilege catches ears where other hues are muted, pleading to nothing. Because if you're going to care, you already do. And if you have the right to be angry, you already are. The rest is the white noise that puts so many to sleep.
Wow.
Oh, great answer.
Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you for
yeah.
sharing, Tony.
White
Thank you.
noise.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Tony.
Powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. I had
Absolutely
a lot
wonderful.
of help working that one out. Ashley, who's on the call, she helped me with that. And a couple other people are not on the show right now. But so thank you very much to everybody for coming out tonight. Apologize to those who are going to show up via the live feed and remind them that we will still be uploading a version of the video to the channel. I just have to now upload it because it's being recorded. Thank you to Megan Gosney, and people can clap. We'd like
Thank you, Megan.
Woo! Thank you, Megan.
Leah Fleming,
Woo! Hi.
Yeah.
Francis Kai-Hwa Wang.
Thank you, Francis. It was beautiful.
I
Thank you.
don't believe Roy is
Thank you,
here
Francis.
anymore, but thank you, Roy, wherever you are.
Thank you, Roy.
Michigan.
Thank you,
Thank you,
thank you,
Troy.
thank you.
Yeah.
Glenn, thank you for bringing Glenn North. Thank you for bringing Casey into the house. We appreciate you.
Glenn, thank you
Amazing.
so much. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Glenn.
Snap, snap, snaps.
And of course, Dessa, who I believe has dropped off the call as well. But thank you. I know a lot of you came to see Dessa. She did not disappoint. And the rest of you, thank you for coming. This has been Poets and Pints number 64, August 2020. My name is Tony Plocido. I will see you next month on the third Wednesday, which I believe is September 16th. Everybody have a wonderful night.
Well, good night.
Bye.
Good to
It's been
see you
amazing,
and talk
guys.
with you old friends. Yes.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
Good
Good
ball.
night, everybody. Thank you.
Good.
Bonsoir.
What can I say after I've taken the blame? You say you're through.
Good to see your face, Sarah.
But I'll always feel just the same. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, loving you, dear, like I do. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of loving you. What can I do and what can I say after I've taken the blame? You say you're through, you'll go your way, but I'll always feel just the same. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, loving you, dear, like I do. If it's a crime,